We are, in fact, getting new Twilight books, and this is not a joke or a troll. This is 100% true, and I will tell you everything that we know about them. I actually believe it's quite likely that we will get one of them this year, because this year is the 20th anniversary of Twilight being published, which I know is crazy. And one thing about Stephenie Meyer is that she loves an anniversary, and I will also explain to you what I think these books are unfortunately going to focus on based on the comments that Stephenie has made and just my own personal evidence that I have compiled, because I really do think that we're gonna see little renasberry reproduce, or it's gonna be related to that. That's gonna be a theme, unfortunately. So Stephenie revealed 5 years ago during the Midnight Sun press tour that she had 2 books planned in the Twilight universe, but she also said that she had no immediate plans to write them and she wanted to focus on other projects first. Now, we haven't seen any of that, and I took that to mean it's a long way off. However, that was 5 years ago, and the biggest indicators that it's coming soon is, number one, she loves an anniversary. For the 10th anniversary of Twilight, she released Life and Death, which I actually ended up loving for reasons that you probably wouldn't guess after I dragged it for years. And then for the 15th anniversary, she released Midnight Sun, of course. 20th anniversary, she's likely to do something, but also a few months back, a while ago actually, she updated her website for the first time in years. And on different pages of the website, she has quotes from her books. A lot of them are from Twilight. And here we see this quote that says, "I'm going to be wherever you are. You'll get used to it." And that is not from any of Stephenie's published work. So we're all thinking that has to be from the new book. So what we know based on her comments during the Midnight Sun press tour is that they're going to focus on Ramphorhynchus. She can't write from Bella's POV anymore because she's too perfect. And at least one of them is going to be set 4 years after Breaking Dawn. She also mentioned Freaky Fred. If you're familiar with The Short Second Life of Bree Tanner, he was one of the newborns, and apparently he's going to make an appearance. Leah is also going to be involved. She never confirmed that Leah would get her own book or anything, but when asked if Leah would get a happy ending, she said she'll get an ending. So remember that, and then her other details just really emphasize my point, my theory about the reproduction theme. Now, this is convoluted and layered, but stay with me because I promise it's all connected. So first of all, I get asked all the time if little Ratatouille can have children, and while this is not explicitly answered anywhere in the novels, my answer as of now is a resounding yes. I think there is overwhelming evidence that she can, and not only that, I think this is going to be like a central theme of these new books. So stick with me. The first point of evidence is in Breaking Dawn, we learn that Jacob and little resveratrol have the same number of chromosomes. We learn this because Carlisle thought that it was totally appropriate to steal Jacob's blood while he was knocked out in Eclipse to study it because he was curious. That was unacceptable for a lot of reasons, but through this we learned that Jacob and Ryan Seacrest have the same number of chromosomes. Now, what would be the purpose of including a detail like that? I believe this indicates that they are genetically compatible or special in some way, meaning that the werewolves, the shifters, and hybrids like Reese's Puff have the same genetics or genetics that are like really compatible or really special for reproduction. Furthermore, the reason for imprinting in the books is heavily implied to be about reproduction as well. Like, they theorize, they speculate, they think their best guess is that the werewolves imprint to produce stronger wolves or to carry on the wolf gene. And there's even a little section in the guide that says this theory has been called into question by Jacob imprinting on Rococo Cullen. And that just says to me, it's definitely still about reproduction, isn't it? Now, more than even that, because I told you this was layered, in the illustrated guide, we also get these family trees for the families with the wolf gene. And there is a set of twin girls in every generation of Jacob's family. Now, why do we think Stephenie would include a detail like this? Do I think it's because Jacob and Rolling Pin are destined to have a set of twin girls? Quite possibly, even though that's not really how the whole twin thing in families works generally, but I think that's very possible. But that's not all. If you remember in Breaking Dawn, we actually met another hybrid, Nahuel, and I would say Nahuel is almost certainly going to be featured heavily in these new books, and it seems as though Stephenie has already set a love triangle up between little Rocamadour, Jacob, and Nahuel, and she certainly does love to write a love triangle, so I feel like it's quite likely that that's what we're getting. But even more than that, Nahuel's entire backstory is about weird reproduction. Now stay with me. Nahuel's father, Joham, was this total creep, and he was like this weird, like mad scientist vampire, and he went around intentionally trying to impregnate human women so that he could create hybrids. He was successful 4 times with Nahuel and also with his 3 sisters, but Nahuel was his only male hybrid, and Nahuel is the only one who has the ability to turn people into vampires. The female hybrids cannot do it. And we know that Joham, Nahuel's father, wants him to reproduce. See if he can make a hybrid or what he can make, right? And another thing about Joham, he discovered that if a woman is the vampire singer, meaning what Bella was to Edward, so like the tastiest human, that which sings to them, they can't resist their blood. If that's the human they're trying to impregnate, they're more likely to impregnate them. Nahuel's mother was Joham's singer. Now, it gets even worse than that because Stephenie specifically said in her interview with the Remember podcast in 2020 that she was going to use that detail. She talks specifically about how vampires in Twilight do not have predetermined mates. They don't have something like imprinting, but there is a physical connection that sometimes exists, and she's going to use that detail in these future books. Now, remember, the examples we have of singers in the books are obviously Bella and Edward. Alice was actually James's singer when she was human, if you're familiar with her backstory. And we also know that Emmett had 2 singers and he unalived them both. And then, like I said, Nahuel's mother was his father, Joham's singer. And that's how he discovered that you are more likely to impregnate your singer. Also notice how all these examples we have, it's only male vampires who are having these singers. But what does that say to you? And that's not all. Stephenie also talked about writing about Leah and what was a huge part of Leah's storyline in Breaking Dawn. It was all about her infertility and how she stopped getting her period when she shifted, and she didn't know if she could have kids, and she thought that she was a genetic dead end, and that's why nobody was imprinting on her, and she didn't know if when she stopped phasing she'd be able to reproduce. So what do I think all this means? My best guess, I think we're getting a Jacob, Rockfish, and Nahuel love triangle. I think that shapeshifters and hybrids can reproduce to create these like tribrid, hybrid, like vampire children with the wolf gene who can like maybe resist venom, and that's what makes them super strong. I think Leah's going to get roped in somehow, whether like she has something with Nahuel or Stephenie writes like a Blackwater tragedy, like Jacob and Leah, something happens. But I do think at the end of the day, unfortunately for him and unfortunately for me, Jacob is going to end up with Rosencrantz, and they are going to reproduce. And I think this is going to be a huge factor in how the Vulturi gets involved with the Cullens again, and how the Cullens ultimately stand against or take down the Vulturi. And somehow Freaky Fred's going to be involved in addition to these weird reproductive themes and the little tribrid children or whatever. Because Stephenie has mentioned that the Volturi needs to be dealt with. So I really think that's what we're looking at. And I'm just telling you to be prepared because I really think it might be this year. Of course, it could totally be something totally unexpected that nobody asked for, like the gender bent retelling of Twilight Life and Death that we got for the 10th anniversary, and that would be funny. It's not going to be New Moon from Edward's perspective. Stephenie has said she's not writing anymore from Edward's perspective, and New Moon should never be retold from Edward's perspective, by the way. If New Moon is retold, it should absolutely be in Jacob's perspective. Nobody needs to hear about Dusty living in dumpsters for 6 months because of his own premeditated decisions. We got enough of that. But the point is, we have not seen the last of Little Ranunculus Cullen, and we have not seen the last horrors of imprinting. I mean, there is more to come. So get ready.